Looks like you will. The president repeatedly promised, though, to not touch Medicaid. Listen to what he said earlier this year. I'll play this clip. Listen to this.
We're going to love and cherish Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We're not going to do anything with that. The people on Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, those people are going to be more secure.
But despite what he said, the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, which is, of course, respected by both Democrats and Republicans, projects 12 million more people would be uninsured because of Medicaid provisions in this legislation. Did the president mislead the American public about not cutting Medicaid?
Yeah, I don't think so at all, and here's why I say that. If you are one of the most vulnerable and need Medicaid, you're a pregnant mother, you're disabled, you're elderly, you know, the people who need the Medicaid the absolute most, you should be extremely excited, because what Republicans did and President Trump did is just make sure that that Medicaid program is there for years to come. See, there's a difference between having Medicaid for people who need it the most versus people when under Obama he expanded Medicaid and there's a ton of waste, fraud, and abuse. So he's cleaning up, we're cleaning up the waste, the fraud, and abuse, and we're putting work requirements in Medicaid to make sure that the people who are most vulnerable don't have to wait behind able-bodied adults to keep that, to get their Medicaid, and it is here for years to come. Not to mention what we're doing with the economy. We're getting more people working. We're energizing the economy, stimulating the economy so that more people are paying into those programs, not taking from those programs. So actually, this is a tremendous win for people.
But the Kaiser Family Foundation, Congresswoman, estimated an earlier version of this bill would cause as many as 340,000 people in your state of Michigan to lose their health coverage. And your state's Democratic Governor, Gretchen Whitmer, says Republicans in Michigan, and I'm quoting her now, need to listen to their constituents. Let me play a little bit more of what your governor said. Listen to this.
17 million Americans could lose health care. Hundreds of thousands of Michiganders. Hundreds of hospitals and nursing homes could be shut down, forcing Michiganders to travel further just to see their doctor. This is life or death for millions of Americans. Republicans representing Michigan need to listen to their constituents.
So, Congresswoman, what do you say to your governor and fellow Michiganders who may lose their health insurance as a result of this bill?
Yeah, what I say is don't let the facts get in the way of a good story, Gretchen. Let's take a look at the facts. We expanded Medicaid, right? If you are able-bodied, Medicaid was never put in place to be a long-term solution for able-bodied people to work. Also, Gretchen, let's clean up our rolls. Let's clean up and make sure that we are rooting out the waste, the fraud, and the abuse. That is a good thing to make sure that the people need it most. But I do agree with her on this. I have listened to my constituents, and my constituents applaud us for what we're doing. My constituents want to work. They want to make sure that their disabled child is receiving Medicaid and doesn't have to stand in line behind an able-bodied person. So we do agree on with each other on that.
This legislation includes restrictions, new restrictions on Medicaid recipients. It doesn't include expanding Medicaid. Is that right?
Right. And one of the restrictions is that if you're able-bodied too, you have to work or volunteer 20 hours a week. See, most of my constituents believe that if you have a right to something, you also have a responsibility as well. So most of my constituents don't think that the restriction of working or volunteering to receive Medicaid 20 hours a week is a bridge too far. They actually are excited about that because they're building skills to actually go back into the workforce. So that's an exciting point. There's opportunity, there's optimism. Fear sells, but at the end of the day, don't let facts get in the way of a good story, Wolf.
An analysis of a near final version of the Senate bill from Penn Wharton, the budget model, they estimate that for the top 0.1%, top 1.1% of U.S. earners, this bill would amount to an income gain of nearly $300,000 a year. Are you comfortable with a piece of legislation that would make the wealthy even a lot wealthier and low-income earners worse off?
Well, I don't understand the premise, and I disagree with you on the premise of the low-income earners worse off. Because, Wolf, if we didn't pass this, if you're in the 12% tax bracket making about $48,000, if we didn't pass this piece of legislation, your tax bracket would go up to 25%. I think that is making low-income earners worse off. So again, we got to make sure that we're telling the facts of the story, and that is the fact.
But are you also comfortable with millionaires getting additional tax breaks?
Listen, I believe that everybody, whether you're middle income, upper income, it doesn't matter. I believe people are better stewards of their money than the federal government. The federal government is not efficient. It is not effective with taxpayer dollars. Hence, we're $36 trillion in debt, right? I believe in people. I believe that we shouldn't give the government a pay raise. I actually believe we should give people a pay raise. And that's the difference in the strategy between the Democrats and the Republicans.
Congresswoman Pamela Brown, my co-anchor, has a question for you.
Oh, I was going to follow up on your question about the wealthiest, but you talk about how much the country is in debt and how this bill is conservative, but it's going to add trillions to the debt ceiling. And that was a big reason, and the CBO estimated it could add trillions to the debt. I mean, that was a big reason why some of these GOP holdouts have been on the fence. Are you comfortable with adding to the debt and raising the debt ceiling that much?
No, I'm not comfortable with the debt, but it's the bottom line that counts, provided you know how to count. So when you take a look at the debt ceiling and when you take a look at a budget, there's two pieces. There's your expenses, right? Which we are spending 1.6 trillion less, right, than we did. 1.6 trillion less money we're spending. But there's another piece, and that's the growth or the income piece, what you're receiving in. The CBO has scored this at 1.8% growth rate. The last time we had 1.8% growth rate, I think, was during World War II. We haven't had that growth rate in decades. But if we get just 0.1% growth difference from 1.8 to 1.9, historically growth rates have been about 2.2, 2.3-ish, depending on the period of time you look at. That's over 1.5 trillion in growth rates. So if we just get that little growth rate or just get back to 2%, we're at even. So again, it's the bottom line that counts, provided you know how to count, and you got to look at both ends of the stick.
All right, Republican Congresswoman Lisa McClain of Michigan, thanks so much for joining us.
Always